What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about the brand new Warrior Burn Warp Pro. Very cool stuff. I'm excited to get into it, so let's go. Alright, so I have never had much experience with the Warp Pros. I've wanted one since the very first version, just to check out. I don't think I ever saw one of those in person. I did throw with the Evo Pro version. Kid had it on one of my teams. Seemed pretty cool. You know, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with it. When the first Warrior Warp came out, you know, it launched amid a lot of controversy. Maybe not real controversy, but people created a lot of drama around it. You know, people who thought it was going to ruin lacrosse and end stringing, and you know, all that seemed really ridiculous to me. I was never able to review it or get my hands on one, and I really wanted to, and I was trying to be supportive. You know, I didn't care about the death of stringing or, you know, all the things that people were worried about. The only thing I didn't like about the original version was the price. That just seemed crazy to me. But what I'm really most impressed about with Warrior is that, you know, that thing, I don't think it sold real well. It was the first step in this ultimate goal that they had, and they didn't quit on it. You know, they were probably selling it. They did take it to market to perhaps fund, you know, further research and development, to, you know, not just dip into the coffers to develop it further. I don't know if I approve of that technique, and I don't even know if that was the answer. Maybe they thought, yeah, this product's good, let's sell it. And then just over time, like things do, things got better. Whatever, however it happened, I'm pleased that they didn't listen to the squawkers on social media and they went for it. They kept moving forward, which is, you know, what we need. We need innovation in lacrosse all the time. And if you watch my channel, you listen to me at all, I'm always talking about innovation and making things better and taking risks, definitely taking risks. And this is a big risk because it's so different than anything we've seen. So that being said, I believe the last version got rid of the Kevlar around the Kevlar knitting that went around the edge, connecting it to the head. I believe this is just that same material, different weave, and there's different weaves throughout, which is very cool. One thing that you'll notice if you look at the very first version of the Warp and the newer versions is that they're becoming more mesh-like. You know, they started having real diamonds. Diamonds started getting bigger. They've got these tension lines across, you know, knitted tension lines across the top, which is their shooters. And this head comes in two different whips. This is whip 1, this is whip 3, and I believe, from what I can tell, it's just a matter of the tension in the shooter that creates the different whip. I prefer the whip 3 because I have kind of like medium whip sticks, so I would say whip 3 is a medium whip. Whip 1, it's not a lot different, but you know, my first throw I kind of sailed it, but then, you know, I was able to tune it up and figure it out. But they throw beautifully, totally consistent. Now, I'm not the greatest stringer, you know, I string okay, but I find my sticks sometimes, not all of them, sometimes some do it well, but sometimes when I release at different, you know, points on the clock, you know, 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you know, 5, 6 o'clock, it releases differently, which makes sense. This thing, I've noticed that it's so incredibly consistent that wherever you're releasing from, it kind of comes out the same way, which is very cool. The older versions, and the version that I threw around with, not the original version, but like the second version, had very little channel. It just came out super wide up here, and it often sailed out here or here on me, and I played with it for 5 or 10 minutes. This, they've figured it out. You know, they've definitely tightened up that channel here. I wish I had a ball. I do have a ball. So, you know, you look at release, it really wants to follow that track of the channel. You're not gonna, if you're releasing sidearm or, you know, low to high, where in a loose pocket it'll shift down and maybe come out here a little bit, even down here, the channel tracks it right back into that sweet spot, right into the center. And I may just be imagining it, but it seems like however I released it, I was getting that sweet center release. People used to complain about the original warps clicking off the lip. This don't click at all. But really nice release, really nice feel. Hold is good. You know, the one I played with did not have very good hold because of that broad channel. Even the Whip 3, it doesn't seem to give up any hold. Maybe a tiny bit up here, you know, if you're like throwing hard fakes, like full fakes or toe dragging, because this shooting tension thing across the top is a little looser, you might not get that hang right there that you would need. But I didn't really notice. My favorite thing, and I think this was a part of the last version too, is so the diamonds are all different sizes. You know, they're smaller up here where you would need everything to tighten up on the way out for the shot or the pass. But down here they're big, and right in the middle you've got this giant diamond. And it's so effective for one-handed cradling, getting that pocket to sit, or that ball to sit low in the pocket. I mean, it just sits in there. I can't get this with stringing, without stringing a complete bag. I mean, I've done it a couple times, but it's difficult, and it kind of really depends on the head. But that, for an attackman, for one-handed cradling, it is locked in there. And you see that it spreads around the ball, and it just kind of cradles it in there, holds it in there. And it's, I mean, it's effective. This is a great one-handed cradling stick. Not a lot of rattle, just locked in. But that's awesome. You know, I'm going to try and not necessarily replicate that, but you know, that's something I really look for. I string a lot of attackman sticks, and you know, that low cradle, I guess, is, for lack of a better word, it's, you know, you want the mesh to cradle the ball in there. And I mean, it's not in any way, shape, or form illegal, but it just wants to sit. That is a beautiful thing. I think Pinnell uses this, and you know, you talk about a guy one-handed from X, and you know, if he's not going to the cage or he doesn't have that lane, his eyes are up, and he's instantly here, and it shifts back up to that triple threat position, right in the pocket. You know, it's mid-low, ready to fly. It's incredibly consistent, which, you know, I mean, you could really develop some funky shots if you're able to release it at 6. You can get that low to high, you know, straight over the top. Whatever you're doing, 3 o'clock, if it's releasing the exact same way wherever you are, you know, Canadian, whatever, Twister, BTB, around the world, whatever you're doing, if it's releasing the same way, and I don't know for sure that it is, but it seemed like it to me, that's a big deal. So the price. My big problem with the original Warp was the price. I think it was $250 for the head, and that's crazy. But that might have been, I mean, I'm sure there was some method to that madness. You know, we're going to get it into the hands of people who can afford it, who are curious. They obviously have the means to buy a $250 kind of an experimental head. They're probably not going to complain. You know, they're the kind of people who try things, doesn't work out, whatever, pull out my other wad of cash for whatever else I want to try. No big deal. I don't know the thinking, but it didn't, you know, it kind of reflected negatively on social media. A lot of people were complaining about it. You know, most people were complaining about the lack of stringability. You know, if this breaks, it's done. If this rips, it's done. And that's $250 down the drain. But it has come down in price now. So the head itself, without the Burn Pro shaft, is $179. So, you know, if you're getting a $90 head and then a $20 piece of mesh, $10 stringing kit, what are you looking at? 120, 130, something like that. So it's more than that. But, you know, the consistency is something that I think is a very appealing factor. It is dead in the water if it breaks. If this rips, if this breaks, you know, it's done. That's a little tough to swallow, but I don't know what kind of warranty there is. I'm sure there's some kind of warranty. There has to be. I didn't look into that, so I should have. That's important. But for people who have no interest in stringing, maybe don't have a circle of friends that includes someone who strings, has the funds available, you know, this $179, that's not so bad. Yeah, that's a good option because it's a good stick. It performs incredibly well. I like the way it throws a lot. Good hold. You know, maybe not as good as mesh, but real close. So they sent them to me, the Warp one, and I mean the Whip one and the Whip 3 on these Burn Pro carbon fiber shafts. These things are nice. This is, it comes with the butt like the old, very similar to the old Gate butt end. You can pop that in and then you lock it into place with one of these doohickeys. Put that in, hammer it in. Or if you don't want to use that, you can use these flat caps that they sent as well. Very similar to the String King flat caps. A lot of companies use those now. That's nice. So you can tape your donut, or you can use something like this. Really nice feature. I love those butt ends. Love the gates, like the Gate Ice, and those are hard to get out. You have to hammer them out. You have to hammer that center point through. Not a big deal though. So this complete, the Warrior Burn Pro carbon fiber shaft and the Burn Pro Warp come in at 330 grams, which is Warrior's lightest ever complete. 330 grams. You know, it's light, but it doesn't feel insubstantial at all. Like it feels stronger than it should, I think, at that weight. It's nice and light, feels good. It definitely doesn't feel like it's in jeopardy of breaking. Very stiff head, which is great. You know, something like this, you want it to last, because if it turned to jello, you know, it's done. Just like if it rips or if it breaks, it's done. If this thing warped or if this thing turned to mush, you know, it's no longer. So it's nice that they're stiff. Really like that. The heads have the lock throat thing, but it's simple. It'll work on just about any shaft. It'll work on just any shaft except a wood one. You know, one screw, but that's fine with that lock throat technology. It's gonna sit in there tight. Really like the look of this shaft. This is a nice looking shaft. I think I might put the black head, the Whip 3, on the white shaft. I think that'll look pretty clean. Actually, it'll look clean both ways, just switching it out, just swapping the shafts. Oh yeah, let's talk about the price. So like I said, the head, the Burn Warp Pro head is $179.99. The shaft, the Burn Pro shaft, is $139.99. So if you bought them separate, that'd be what, $319.98. So if you buy them together, like this as a complete, it's $279.99. So you're saving $40, which is pretty cool. And I don't think that's totally unreasonable. I think it's on the high end, but what you gain from this, I really think it's good. You know, if you have no interest in stringing and you don't know anybody who can string, you know, buying something like this, you're good to go. And it's consistent. You'll step on the field and you'll be killing it because it's good. You know, much better than if you, and I still strongly encourage people, if you even have the faintest inkling of interest in stringing, learn how to string and do it yourself. And you don't need to spend the extra money on something like this. But if it's just not something that is in you, you have no interest in doing anything yourself, which, you know, I don't get personally. I like doing things myself, but I know people that have, you know, zero interest. Then this is for you, and it's a good option. Like I said, this is my first exposure to the Warp. I wanted the earlier versions. I expected to not be impressed by those, you know, if I were to come across one. When I finally did come across the Evo version just for a few minutes, I was like, oh, that's not bad. I didn't really, you know, I sailed it. I didn't like the amount of whip that it had. I don't know if that was a whip 1 or whip 3, but you know, it was coming out high. It was also coming out a little bit inconsistently on the sides. But I didn't hate it. This one is considerably better than that. They have made improvements, which I love, and I bet they'll continue to make improvements. You know, we'll see other versions. We'll see, and eventually, it could be very well perfect. Other than the fact that once it rips or breaks, it's done. But I think it's unlikely to rip. I mean, I don't really know. I really don't. You know, time will tell. We'll see people posting on social media about breaks if they happen. So you know, the market will keep everyone apprised of how durable these are. But anyway, cool stuff. I'm into it. You know, I absolutely see a purpose. I absolutely see a market, and it's a quality product that's filling that niche, whatever. I remember in high school, I had a biology class that had the teacher, but then it had like a teacher's assistant who was a biology, like had a master's in biology, but was working on their teaching credentials, and they would both kind of teach the class. One would say niche and one would say niche, and I'm like, you're not helping me. I need to know how that word is pronounced. But now that I'm old, I know that it's pronounced both ways. Both are okay, but I change it up. I like say it a different way every time. So anyway, not that that matters. All right, guys, so go check this out. I would absolutely suggest, if you are interested, go get your hands on one. Go to a store, you know, go to a tournament. It's summer, there's tournaments everywhere. You know, there will be vendors out there with these. Just ask if you can go throw around with it. You know, I don't know. Most of the time vendors at tournaments are cool. They'll be like, yeah, let's go have a catch, and I'll play catch with you, and you'll be like, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's quality. I'm impressed. Tonight is ULAX, the ULAX Summer League for my kid. I'm going to try and convince him to take this out on the field. He won't like that idea. He falls in love with the stick, and then it's impossible to get him to try something else. He doesn't even like holding other sticks. It's like, ew. So maybe I'll get him to take it out on the field tonight. It's pretty relaxed, so it shouldn't be a big deal, but I'd be really curious to see what he thinks. Anyway, go check out the Warrior Burn Warp Pro if you get a chance. They're cool. Quality stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.